man. You know, two semi-finals, went at the FA Cup. I'm sure you've spoken about the league. How you feeling, all things considered?
I'd love to say, like, positive and, like, yes, okay, we got to semi-finals and but we're second, whatever, but like I am kind of feeling, and maybe it's just because of like sort of how close we are still to the season. We're still in the season. Doesn't feel like it, but we still are in the season. Yeah, man. I'm just like I'm not throwing anything, and I'm not saying like we can't do anything. But like if I have to be totally honest, right now, my optimism levels are probably the lowest they've been in a long time. I do think, like, logically, you can look through the season and go, yeah, no, the injuries and the red cards and this thing, and if we sign the right players and if, but it's a lot of ifs, and we're doing ifs every single season, and there's no divine right to go and win a Premier League or Champions League. So yeah, it's concerning. Look, there is positives, and there's a lot.
Let us know.
Well, look, it depends how you want to look at it. Like, but I have to say, like, I think it is a choice at this point to be like, right, there's a loads of positives, and we should look at those. Yeah, what are we, 5 years into the project? It's starting to get concerning. So yeah, I think it's okay to say that, and it doesn't mean for anyone who supports Arteta or doesn't or whatever. Like, it's okay to be like, actually, this is concerning, and we have a massive summer ahead of us, and I'm hoping to hear more stuff soon.
I mean, even you're sounding quite cheesed off, if I'm honest. Not that you're throwing your toys out the pram or whatever and you're disregarding any potential positives or making out everything's great or everything's amazing, but you're normally a lot more upbeat, man. Like, you sound a bit frustrated. What is the frustrations? You kind of alluded to it. Is it a case of we're so close, and then you could argue we're so far? Like, you mentioned 5 years, which you're all right. I look at the last 3 years in total, like 2022, 23 up until this point. Of course, there's different reasons, different contexts. The bottom line is we haven't reached the holy grail, the promised land of a trophy. It's nice to flirt with the semi-finals and things. And I hate to say it, but it does feel a bit like courageous losers, if I'm honest with you. Like, where does the frustration come with for you if you are frustrated?
I am frustrated, and like, probably that'll dissipate a little bit, but it's from I guess feeling two things. One, I feel like we played so much of the season with our hands tied behind our back. To be honest,
blindfolded.
Do you know what I mean? And like, I looked at the end of that Liverpool game, and we didn't have Gabriel, Havertz, Tommy, Jorginho. I think Deck came off. Trossard came off.
Weren't there?
There was I think there was like 9 first team players unavailable. And we're told, well, it doesn't matter, don't make excuses. What at what point, like, if Liverpool had Jota and Gravenberch and Curtis Jones and Van Dijk and Konate, like, if you just went through their whole team and just completely ripped it, is that fair? Would we think, oh, it's fair to say excuses? But the fact is, we are also 5 years into a project and we haven't won anything. So, like, those two things together really, really, really frustrate me. Oh, sorry, no, Deck didn't watch, didn't play. So yeah, it's holding those two things together is really, really hard, because it's like, I do absolutely see the context of this season and how it's played out, and I absolutely see that. We're also so close. Like, we're two that Saka chance away from putting something in the back of the net, and I can make so many allowances for this team. Like, I don't really blame the players. I guess my frustration is more with like almost like the situation. It's like you're like, something's happened and you're like, I'm not actually angry at anyone. It's just the situation is so mad. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it just feels really. So yeah, I'm not. I fully back Arteta. I fully back the players. I fully back this executive team that they are trying and they're going to do something in the summer. I genuinely, really, really believe. I look at
we trust, man.
Mate, 100%. And also, like, Saka, Saliba, Rice, Gabriel, these are top level players. But there comes a time when you can have the worst injury luck in the world. You can do absolutely everything right. You can find bargains in the market. You can do the best contract work. You can revamp the stadium. You can make the best kits. You can do absolutely everything right. And you can still not win. And it's that frustration that I think is yeah. It's like, yeah, when you feel like in your life you're just like hammering away at something and just nothing's going off, it's annoying basically.
I want to stay on this topic because it is annoying. Yeah. What do you pull it down to this season? Like, what do you, obviously you can't just pull it down to one thing. You know, you could throw in the transfer market, refereeing decisions, us not closing out games, maybe Mikel Arteta, in my opinion, not evolving tactically, like completely off topic. But I feel in every man's life and every coach's life, there's a point where everything changes. And I think this season is something Mikel Arteta has to learn from as a personal coach, let alone Arsenal. But like, if you had to put it down to one thing as to ultimately why our season hasn't gone where we want it to be, what would it be for you?
I think you have to say injury. If you have to say one thing, you have to say injuries for me. But look, it's up to everyone listening and what they think. They can say, the big factor this season is Mikel not being able to rotate his squad. Like, fair enough, and like that's I don't have a perfect answer. No one has a perfect answer.
No one does, yeah.
If that's what you want, but I think it's about looking at like the yeah, it's I guess it's holding that frustration of so many things. We can make a list of like, well, if the red cards hadn't happened, and if the injuries hadn't happened, and if the fixtures hadn't happened at the start of the season, and if so and so scored that chance, and and all those things are true, like they are true. It just depends.
They're all ingredients.
They're all ingredients, so you can pick which one you think is the number one ingredient. It's up to you, but yeah, I guess the frustration is none of it matters in the end. If you have to pick one, I'd say injuries for this season, because like I can't look at 9 players out against Liverpool. I can't look at our back line actually in the reverse fixture against Liverpool. I can't look at the fact with no Gabriel in the run and no Havertz. Like that feels like the big thing. But in 20-30 years time, no one's going to go, oh, but didn't they have a couple of red cards?
No, but we've won 2 trophies this year, Alex, man. We beat Madrid and we beat City, man. They will remember this 20-30 years. But I think you're bang on the money in that. That's the annoying thing. I do want to ask a follow-up question then, yeah, because it's a good topic to stay on. Like, obviously, we know the club tries to sign players, trying to do stuff. Whether they've done it or not is another thing. But you look at the squad depth, I think it's intangible, but I think it's different. But you mentioned rotation. At what point, I guess what I'm trying to ask you is, the injuries unlucky or is it incompetence? Because we know, for me anyways, because I asked you about putting it down to one thing. I know this is very naive. I pull it down to the summer. I believe in life, you start as you mean to go on. I don't think we had the numbers. I don't think we added on to the quality. So at what point, is it like we know it's going to rain, we're standing in the rain and we haven't got a jacket? Is that incompetence or stupidity? How far does the injury excuses as far as Arsenal internally go for you then?
Yeah, again, it's all ingredients in the thing, and obviously you may feel that the summer is the main ingredient. I think the injuries are the main ingredient. It's both, and how much of each is kind of up to each individual person. I think the summer was objectively not good enough, and I don't know.
No objective, Alex, it weren't, man. We bought Sterling in on deadline day, bro.
No, not good enough.
Oh, fair enough. I misheard. frustration.
Like, in hindsight, look, I have to say, at the end of the window, I was going like, it's like a 7 out of 10, because I was looking at it and I was thinking, and I was going like, okay, Sterling, that's at the time in August, this is what I'm saying. Like, we're signing a established Premier League player who's probably going to get, 10, 12 goals, maybe 8, 9 assists or something like that.
Arteta can change him
off the bench. Yeah, he can get him going again. You're looking. We've just found Havertz at the end of last season. You're thinking probably we might be okay for another season. Maybe we probably still need that top forward, but maybe we can get through and get by. We're not that far away. You're looking at Calafiori and Marino and stuff. And you're saying, okay, we didn't do the thing we absolutely would love to do, but 7 out of 10.
It's not the best, but it's not the worst kind of thing.
Because you're two points away. So if you sign 3 players on top, you think, okay, well, maybe we could do it, and that's depth, and that was the one thing that people were asking for last time. But that it just didn't work out that way. So I think it's hard because you're judging things in retrospect, and at the time I was going, I think that's actually an all right window. But ultimately, you're judged by your results, and that didn't work out. But again, Marino was injured when he came in. Calafiori was 5.5 months injured. Raheem Sterling is just, that's a whole.
He's just Raheem Sterling, man. That's the nicest way to put it.
Whole different kettle of fish. But no doubting that the part of this season has the season has many fathers of this failure, and the
I like that.
injuries are one, but the summer absolute, and also not reacting in January is yeah, I think, but also then you go, okay, but who's responsible for that?
This is what
Who's
I'm talking about.
responsible for the injuries? Who's responsible for that ingredient? And that's
We're all in it.
Yeah, that's another complicated question, because it's like, okay, Mikel's taking advice from medical staff, but also he's the one playing them. Is he, is he ignoring the advice? I can't believe that. Is he wrongly advised? But is he responsible for this structure? Does he need to change certain things? You read about Arne Slot's like ability to keep players going and how he does things. Like, does he need to look at that? So it's not just the injuries and they're Arteta's fault. It's loads of people. But as I say, in the end, you take a step back. No one's going to remember. Yeah, but it was in 20 years. Yeah, but it was that summer. Or yeah, but it was, was he taking the right medical advice? No
Exactly.
one's that. So that's the frustration for me.
And that's the thing, man. Like, it starts in August, it ends in May. A week's a long time in football. That's 38 game weeks. 1 minute one player's a hero and then they're a failure according to what happened. But in the end, as you said there, 20 years from now, no one's gonna matter. Now, I know how social media gets. We all know the teams that are potentially languishing in relegation potential places, and they might win trophies and they've had better seasons than us, etc., etc. I'd say completely off topic, but the one scary thing is actually Newcastle. If they go and win their next 2 games, they finish above us and won a League Cup. We haven't really got a leg to stand on. Do you feel like, how do I make this make sense? Like, it's a bit of a difficult question. Do you feel like we've evolved? Because maybe I'm looking at it naively, but the 2022-23 season, I think we needed to improve defensively, and I think that scarred Arteta, as we've discussed before. But we're known for our attacking brand. The year after that, so last season, we was known as a good defensive side, and I think I could smell that kind of in the air with our team. This year, I don't know what we're significantly good for. It feels like we've winged it. We've kind of just maintained what we're kind of good at and just chugging it along. Like, do you feel we've improved at anything, or do you feel we've stagnated or regressed? Like, where are you at with that?
I think you could take the perspective that we've got less points and we haven't won a trophy, so no. But I think there's certain things we have evolved in. I think there's finding different ways of playing. We found, Marino at centre forward. We found, Miles over the course of the season. We found Waneri. I think Declan Rice has pushed on. I think David Raya has pushed on. So I think there's certain individuals and certain aspects of the system. And I actually think we're like second for like goals from substitutes or something. There's like, in terms of dealing with the circumstances that have been arisen, playing with 10 men, I think we've actually done that really well in general.
We've reacted to adversity.
Conceded like one goal or something with 10 men. So yeah, like I think there's certain aspects, but again, it pales in comparison to ultimately. You could go, yeah, no, but we've actually, considering the circumstances, we've pushed forward. It's very hard to make that argument when you look at the points totals and when you look at how we've done. So I don't know. Like, it's like, do you know what it's like? It's like Arteta coming out after the PSG game and saying we played better than them.
It's been the best team in the Champions League.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you actually might be, by certain metrics, like expected assists and XG and things like, you might be right, but just don't say it. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you say Arsenal evolved this season, you might be correct in a few senses. It's just not worth. It's not worth that being your takeaway from the season for me, anyway. So
and the fallout when you say these statements as well.
Exactly. So yeah, I can't look at the season and say we progressed. I think we did in certain areas, and I think that we dealt with the hand we were dealt pretty well, to be honest. But yeah, I find it very hard to sit here at the end of the season and review it and go, yeah, I actually think we pushed on this season.
You'd be an idiot to say that, man. You'd be lying to your subscribers, bro. Like, a blind man could see that. It's, we all know what was said at the end of last season against Everton, and ultimately we failed to deliver. I mean, you kind of touched on it earlier, and for me, if I feel sorry for anyone, it's the players. Like, everybody's in this together. I'm not one of those fans that it's all Arteta, it's all the board, it's all the players. It's everybody. Everybody's done something to contribute negatively to where we're at. I feel sorry for the players because I can question their ability, whether they're the right option, yada, yada, yada. But I've seen people play with injuries. I've seen people step up. Of course, these guys are playing. So when we've dropped points, indirectly, you are to blame. But I feel sorry for the players. And then I just look at the whole club. Like, I mentioned the summer, and then I mentioned January, or you mentioned January better yet. And that's where I looked at everyone a bit weird. Of course, I'm not a fly on the wall. I understand you don't want to sign players for the sake of it and powder dry and everything. But then I thought about it, like, even if Arteta didn't want any players in January, then he's a bit of a wallad, if I'm honest. But if I assume that he didn't want players, like if he genuinely didn't want players, and you was above Mikel Arteta, whether you're Cronkies or whatever, and you're looking at our season as how we can salvage it, and players are dropping like flies, maybe I'm a bit naive, but I think other clubs like a Madrid or something, they would still act. And I felt sorry for the players because you got Declan Rice coming out and saying, "Oh, Tierney has to play left wing. I'm sure they want to act." That told me that we just think we're cool to get top 4. Do you think this is a summer where like players might think, okay, the bubble's kind of popped? You know, you look at the 2022-23 season, we weren't expected to be in that. We was expected to drop away, and everyone was going to be amazing last year. This year, as you said, you know, we came into it 2 points or so off City. Do you think this is one where the players are probably questioning like where we're going as a football club?
I don't know. What is a wallad, by the way?
Like an idiot, like just wallad, bro. Like a wallad.
Yeah, potentially. Look, I think you're touching on something quite interesting there, though, on the ownership, which is about the sort of that attitude. And I think that not reacting in January, like the Ollie Watkins thing, if you could pinpoint for me the most annoying thing about this season is basically we went Ollie Watkins for what is that? You know, what is it, 60 million or something like that? Well, we'll only go to 40.
Remember, he was offered to us as well. We didn't go out there trying to get him as well.
And Ollie Watkins, by the way, like Arsenal need a lot this summer. Ollie Watkins can play in multiple positions. He's 29. This is the whole thing about age at the minute. People are like, bro, he's like nearly 30. Well, we need to win now. We're not thinking about winning in 5 years' time. We need to win that. So why? Okay, he's 29. That's okay.
How old was Vardy when he first kicked a Premier League ball? He's 28.
Exactly. And Ollie Watkins at the end of the season, what could that have done for us? I don't know. But yeah, so that I think what you're hitting on is yeah, you could call it a lack of ambition. I don't know exactly. Maybe it's too much focus on strategy and long-term thinking and value, whatever. But what you're bang on about is Real Madrid, and this is the key point that I'm trying to stress to Arsenal fans. We have to remember what we're aiming for and who we're competing with. It's all very well making arguments and saying, yeah, but, you know, for example, with Martinelli, you know, why don't we get him an overlapping fullback? And why don't we do this? And, you know, why don't we extend that person's contract because we can save £10 million there? And no, but Ollie Watkins will probably be a little bit cheaper in the summer. So, okay, do you know what? You're probably right. But can I tell you what your rivals are doing? Spending £200 million in January and then another £200 million in the summer.
Seizing the opportunity in the present moment. That is something we need to do as a club.
You said it. So like, again, you're probably right that Ollie Watkins wasn't the perfect, you know, value or whatever. You're probably right that, you know, if we put Martinelli inside and got him more touches or what, you know, we can have a discussion about that. But what are your rivals doing? That, like, if you look at them, they're not operating that way. And that's who we're aiming for. I sometimes think we're still in a bit of project mode. Like we're still in kind of, you know, balancing the books and all these sorts of things. Like we're still in that sort of headspace 100% sometimes. And sometimes I look at decision making, you know, that we make, and this is away from the fans. This is just the board. That Ollie Watkins thing feels like basically long term. You know, he's not got resale value, etc., etc. Okay. But if Mikel Arteta doesn't win something next season, probably, I don't know, but it would depend on the context. But I would say a big majority of fans will be saying it's probably time for him to move on.
People want the guy gone now.
Well, yeah.
And last year. Want him gone yesterday.
Exactly. So, okay, yeah. So you can wait. Yeah, you can wait another year. Well, he'll be gone. So then the whole thing will be. So, like, at what point are you just going to act? It's strange to me. I will say, like, that type of thinking has a lot of value in terms of getting us here, in terms of building this squad, in terms of building this, you know, building the group we have, and, you know, aside from maybe like Havertz and Jesus, like wage wise, we're in pretty good nick and things like that, and contract wise, in pretty good nick. But yeah, there is you hit it on nail on the head. Kvaratskhelia is available for £60 million. We need.
Look what you would have done for us, man. You know, I love Martinelli, but mate, you're gonna have to hold bench. Yeah. Would have been amazing.
So yeah, I do think there's a slight mentality shift. And to answer your question about the players, yeah, eventually they must be looking at it. They must become what stood on the Anfield pitch, looking around and going, well, "You're not here.